everybody! It's Friday, Friday! What did I say it was going to be? It's make new friends, make new friends, make new friends on Friday! Pink Sheep and Friends is now weekly until further notice. I'm so excited that it has worked out for me to do these chats every week because it's just, for me, it's more fun to have someone to chat with. I feel like people have been enjoying it. You're getting to know new friends and expanding your community, which is everything I've wanted for Pink Sheep to be about. I want you guys to feel like you have a community, a strong community that continues to grow and it's supportive. And today I'm actually getting to chat with someone who started out testing for me in the early days. Actually, I think, and when she comes on, I'll have to ask, but I think the Granger Cardigan might have been one of the first ones that she tested for me, which is what I'm wearing right now. So I am super excited to bring her on. This is Allie of Knitislegit, and let's make sure that I can actually get her on here. So excited! Oh, thank you guys. Who's Helen said just following you. I've got a lot of new followers, you guys. This has been a little crazy. Hello, Ellie. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I was just saying I had someone who said that they just started following me. I don't know what's going on, but I have 40,000 followers right now.
I literally just checked. When I was going to just come on the live, I was like, how many followers does Evelyn have now? And I literally just had the thought, I'm like, oh my God, like
mind blown. So, and I'll have to tell you, I was one of those people, and I've been saying, like, I don't want to do reels. Reels are stupid. I don't like them. I'm not going to do them. And I said, you know what? I really need to see if it works. I really need to see if like doing what Instagram tells me to do will make a difference. And the only thing that has been different is I am doing a reel every day. I'm posting one reel every single day.
I love your one that you just did. That one was really cute.
Yes, that was so much fun to make. And it's interesting because I used to follow a lot of photographers, you know, with the photography side of what I like to do. And I always got frustrated when photographers would show like a behind the scenes, but then they didn't show the finished picture. Like I see the setup, but I want to see what it actually looks like. And so that was where that idea for that video, and like I want to do a bunch of videos like that where just kind of, whether it's facial expressions, what to do with your hands, you know, posing for different types of wearables, but showing that final image so that if people want to kind of see what I meant when I was like, okay, cross your arms like this, you know, this is what it'll look like. So yes, I'm super excited. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So remind me, which pattern was the first one that you tested for me?
I heard you say Granger Cardigan, which I did test, but the first one that I actually tested was the Trelawney.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so that was the first one that I did, and that was December of 20. When was the pandemic? December 2020 is when I did.
Yeah, because it was 2020 when I really started posting, doing patterns again. You know, I had 2 patterns in my shop in 2019, and that was the 2 crop tops that I have.
Yeah.
See, Captain.
Oh.
I can't hear you because she's wearing headphones, but hey.
And he's working on hooks right now.
Nice.
Working on DIY hooks, so he's super excited.
Yeah. Cutting down a bamboo forest. Actually.
And he's cutting down a bamboo forest. Yeah, we have a lot of bamboo in the yard, so he's been busy. I actually just saw him out my window dragging bamboo up the driveway.
It's pretty incredible, like how quickly it grows, and like it's yeah, it's pretty incredible.
And he's using it for a lot of things. Like we're cutting down bamboo and using it to like trellis in the garden, so we don't have to buy, you know, stuff for that. So it's actually, we're finding a lot of uses for having a bamboo forest in the front yard.
That's awesome.
Okay, so Trelawney was the first one you tested for me. And I'm guessing that's probably when I started following you. That was when I really started kind of trying to grow my own community and say, okay, if someone is testing for me, if someone is commenting on my stuff, if they're being super active, I don't want to be one of those accounts that only follows like 5 people. You know, like I want to follow people back. I want to have these relationships, you know.
Yeah, and I
And you really have
you being like very I mean, I think you were approachable, right? That's what like made me, but you were also like super responsive, which I think is another thing, right? Like as people's, and I understand like we're all very busy and everything, but as people's following grows and everything, sometimes like that responsiveness cuts down a little bit. And so I just remember when you posted about testing that, I had reached out to you and I was like, I don't know if your pattern goes up to my size, but I could still make it and have someone else. And you're like, well, it could go up to your size. Like, what size are you? Like, and that's kind of how, like, I was really impressed by that. Like, oh, here I am. Like, she hasn't like made, you know, like she hasn't made it in my size before, but like she's open to the conversation. And I thought that was like very, very impressive.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And you were you may have been the first. You may have been the first tester who was outside of the size range that I really understood, that I had testers for, you know, because that was always my thing. I'm not going to put it out there if it hasn't been tested, because I don't know if it's going to fit correctly. And I always heard that people who said, yeah, the pattern says it goes up to, you know, 5X, but that doesn't mean that it's going to fit me if I'm a 5X. And so you were one of the first people that I realized it goes beyond the experience of sending out a pattern and getting feedback. There is a design element that you truly helped me. You know, you gave me feedback. This is too long. This does not fit as it should, true to size for my size. This is, and I think you helped me, especially with the length, because that was always an issue for me, figuring out the length of garments as the sizes go up. And it made me realize, like, even now I call my testers my design team, because I take that feedback and I want to make the garments so that everyone can like them and feel confident in them and they're going to fit correctly, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And that's what I love too, like because some of your cardigans, like some had a more like cropped fit, right? And so like if you see that and you see it on you, even if you're my size and you're like, well, I still want to make a cropped garment, like I don't want to make a dress now, right? You know what I mean? So I think that's been great, is to kind of work through that and see like how can we still make something that fits the way that it was intended and the way it was designed, is made for multiple sizes. So
and that's something else I've seen. People who they'll go to make a garment that is cropped, like you said, but then when they get to their size, it doesn't actually fit cropped.
Right.
And I had that issue. It was the Granger cardigan. I don't know. I don't think, did you test that one?
I did, yeah.
And that one was the one where my plus size testers, it was fitting like a dress. And I had to rewrite the entire pattern. To get the sizing right. But once we did that, it's like, oh my gosh, this is doable. This is amazing.
Absolutely.
So was that the first wearable garment test that you did?
That was my first test, period.
I couldn't remember. Yes.
I had never tested a product before. I didn't even know testing existed. I didn't know testing was a thing. Yeah. I really did to like the greater crochet world. I mean, similar to what you said, you know, in trying to grow my own following or just like other things I was interested in. I was following a lot of like photographer, just things that I'm interested in, travel. I did follow, you know, a handful of crocheters, but I really wasn't connected with that community. And I think that your post just like came across my screen. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like people test things, like test patterns.
That's awesome.
I had never even read it until I tested.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I didn't realize this. This is new to me.
I never read a pattern. I had attempted to make early on in the pandemic, I had attempted to make 2 sweaters myself, just from like, I'll just make this panel. Like I used to tell people, like, I'm really good at making anything that's like square, rectangle,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
I do hats, not good at it. So I tried to make 2 sweaters on my own, and actually the sweater that I ended up making a pattern for, the shelter in place pullover, that was actually like a formalized iteration of this sweater that I just like created on my own in the pandemic that did not really fit the way I thought it was going to, but ended up being cute anyway for somebody else.
Yeah.
And so when I saw your post, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I'm dipping my toes in this idea of like true wearables. And so I'm like, let me try, you know. And again, you kind of advertised always like beginner friendly, and you know what I mean? Like I said, once you reached out to me, I felt like, okay, this person's approachable. Like if I have any questions on this, like she'll probably be able to help me. And that was honestly my first introduction into reading patterns and my first introduction into the crochet community. And it was pretty incredible. I mean, it was really like a big unlock for me, a big unlock.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like you are very involved now in the crochet community from what I can tell. I think I've seen a lot of accounts grow in that way. The more people that I've followed and the more people that have become a part of my specific tester community, is seeing them commenting on each other's posts, sharing each other's stories, celebrating each other, and testing for each other. That's what was amazing. I think I've had, I mean, I don't know how many, but at least 5 to 10, if not more, of my testers that have gone on to start writing their own patterns. And then my testers are testing for them. They're all testing for each other. And it's amazing.
It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah, it's something I would have never, like I said, I didn't even know it existed. And I also think I didn't know that it was even important. Like, you know, like I think for so many of us, crochet or any other hobby, you know, that you have or interest that you have, it can be like a very personal thing, right? Like, and I think crochet is that way where it's like, oh, this is something I do to like decompress, or this is something I do for my mental health, or whatever the case may be. And it almost can feel weird to like share that with somebody else, or to think that there's a benefit to that. But I'm telling you, from that moment in 2020 until now, my skills and just like my understanding of fibers and creativity and all of that just like exponentially grew by being a part of the community and having that dialogue with other testers, other designers. So it's been a huge unlock for me.
Yeah. And have you felt, I know for me, I think some people are afraid to be a part of a community because of the fear of the negative.
Yes.
So we know that social media can be toxic. We know that there can be a lot of negativity. There can be people that are trolling. There can be, just mean girls, I mean, boys too, but just mean people in general are out there and on social media. But I feel like for me, I don't seem to have that. I mean, it is very, very rare that I have a negative comment that I have, and I don't block people. I am not that type of person. I don't block people. I'll block weird messages, like the creepy people that are like, hey, how's it going? They get blocked. But, I haven't had a need to do that, and I think some of it's, I don't go there either. I don't try to get, dramatic with my post. This is crochet. This is patterns. It's what I'm making, but for me, this community has been probably 99.9% positive for me. And I don't know if you've had the same experience or.
Yeah, no, I have had the same experience. And I do think that for folks like you who do have a lot of followers, I would say that in like several other types of pages or types of forums, you probably would be opening yourself up to a lot of negativity. But I agree. Generally, I find the crochet community, or fiber artists in general, the knitting community, to be very positive, and to be very supportive, and to definitely, get less of the negative reactions. And of course, a little bit of it is about like your content as well, and how, and not to like to each his own. But like, a little bit of that has to do with, what you put out there. as you know, is going to dictate a little bit of what you get back in return. But overall, I think, yeah, it's been a very, very supportive place and very encouraging kind of environment.
Yeah. What do you and I haven't even talked about your origin story, because I love talking about so just start calling it that now, because we're superheroes. fiber superheroes.
Exactly.
So when did you learn to crochet? What does that look like? And I know that you used to knit, and we can talk a little bit about that too. Sorry, my cat just really wants to be up on the table. Yes. But yes, how did you learn to crochet, knit, all of that, and what has that journey looked like with just the crafting side of things?
Yeah, so as a kid, I actually had a dad who was pretty creative. He used to he was like, you know, he had one of those little looms. He'd be like making pot holders, and you know, he made a variety of things when we were younger that kind of expressed, I feel like, a more creative side. So I feel like I grew up doing most of the things that kids do like that, right? Making pot holders, things of that nature. Yeah. But then, you know, never really revisited that. Wasn't really a thing for me. And then about 10 years ago, I was working with a couple girls who had started knitting. One was knitting scarves. And I thought, oh, that looks cool. And I had just recently gotten sober. So I've been sober now for almost 10 years. December will make 10 years. Most people that follow me know that. I'm pretty open about talking about it. And so I kind of was like looking for something else to occupy my time, occupy my brain, occupy my hands. And so I asked this coworker of mine, like, would she, you know, teach me to knit? And so she did. And if you go back, like if you scroll through all of my posts to like the very beginning, you'll see these little like almost like neck gaiters that that were knit and that had like buttons on them, and were pretty simple to make and fun. And so that's where I got started. And it was also one of my coworkers. He was one of my like co-managers at the time. He was the one who came up with the name Knitislegit. And it just kind of we loved it. And now kind of that's the running joke, and it's even on my profile, is like knit is legit, but I mostly crochet. And I should probably just say now, like, knit is legit, but I only crochet. So yeah, it's something that just made the transition. Like I wanted to try crocheting, same thing. One of my coworkers had wanted me to make something for them, and it was a crocheted product. And I was like, oh, let me try this. And I just really found crochet. Like I just found it to be like a lot easier for me, a lot quicker for me. And I was just like, this is fun. Like, let me try this for a while. And then I just never looked back. You know, I have a friend desperately trying to get me to like try knitting again, but I honestly don't think that I will. So yeah,
just being honest.
Yeah, that's kind of how I started. And then I started making scarves mostly, you know, and infinity scarves. And that's really kind of,
and they were chunky. They were chunky scarves.
Yeah, I kind of became known for like what I call the jumbo, like my jumbo scarf. And yeah, they're big boys, and and they just became a lot of fun. It became easy for me to definitely like experiment, as you mentioned earlier, with like textures and different colors. And I'm really known for like color blocking as like a big thing that I do. And so, yeah, that just kind of like took off. And I was like really surprised by how many people were like, wow, your scarves are beautiful, you know? And I mostly started just like, you know, giving them as gifts, right? It becomes an easy thing that like you can make yourself and give to someone. They became gifts, or, you know, maybe my coworkers would want to buy one, or someone in my family. And then slowly but surely, you know, I started, you know, dabbling like in a few other things. But like I said, I never thought I'd be at this point. I never thought like it's really within the last like 2 years that I really started like making things, that I went from making a scarf to like making a dress, you know?
Yes.
So, yeah, pretty incredible.
Yeah. And so you sell things at shows still, I believe. I think I just saw one of your new promo videos, right?
Yeah, I
Which
do.
is so cool.
Yeah, so my friend Lisa, she's just so funny. She's one of those people where she's just like your biggest fan, right? And she's just like,
Yes.
to do this. Like she came to help me and my sister. My sister makes clay earrings, and so we're able to go and like do some of these events together. And she's like,
That's
I need to
great.
make like a commercial, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how that came about. But I'll be honest, the majority of things that I sell is from like direct messages from
Yeah.
people requesting something that is custom, whether it be, color or design or what have you. So
Yeah. And where do you feel like your inspiration for the colors comes from? Because that's something from the very beginning when I first started following you, when I was going through, because your feed was scarves. I mean,
yeah.
when I remember when I first started following you, it was just full of all of these different crazy colorful scarves that you've made. And I was like, her colors are so cool. Like I'm like bookmarking, oh, I love this color combo. Like I need to try this at some point. Where do you feel like that came from?
Yeah, I honestly think, and I made a post about it one time. I think that a lot of it in the moment, it feels very organic, like where I'm just at the store and I'm like grabbing yarn. I'm like, oh, this looks good together. This looks good together. But oftentimes I can like actually trace it back to like something I've seen, like subconsciously. And so I did make a post one time that showed a series of like scarves I had made and like how
Yeah.
things that I saw in nature or artwork that I have in my home. But I would say that
That's awesome.
is probably, or I won't even call it nature. I would say the outdoors,
Yeah.
right? Like things that I see, whether it's, whether it's like a park or
Yeah.
what, even like a cityscape,
Hmm.
I just think that's where both like my play on colors and texture comes from,
Hmm.
is just like the outside world.
And I feel like that means you're pretty visual. Like if you're seeing things and it's just kind of hanging out in your subconscious until it's ready to come out, in fiber,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. I've never been afraid of color. Like,
Hmm.
I wear probably more like neutral colors now than I ever did
Yeah.
before. But like,
Yeah.
I've always been like a crazy color person, crazy pattern person. I'm like,
Hmm.
everything matches everything in my mind, you know?
Yeah.
So, I think that's allowed me to be a little bit bold in my choices.
Yeah.
And as a result, I've created some pretty cool things.
It's almost to me like there's no fear of it being a failure. I think
Right.
that's what holds a lot of people back is like, I'm afraid this might look ugly, so I'm not going to try it.
And
Whereas you're just like,
I have
yeah,
made ugly things. I have made some things where I'm like, that color combo with the bobble stitch does not work.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
But there's no regrets there. I think that's what I'm hearing as you're talking about it is I'm not afraid to just experiment. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I'm going to try it because I think it might work.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And
Yeah.
sometimes like things almost like come full circle. Like something can be so weird that it actually
Yeah.
ends up being cool. Right. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, actually that's pretty weird. And I didn't think that could work, but like
Yes.
really pulling it off, So that's happened a few times as well.
I think that's how I felt about my latest design with the t-shirt yarn. I really like as I'm doing it, I'm like, I don't know if anybody's even gonna like this, but I actually really do like how this has turned out. So we're gonna go with it
Yeah.
and we're gonna see what happens. And if nobody buys the pattern, that's cool. I've put it out in the world. I'm proud of it. Like
Yes.
you know?
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think kind of the cool thing about clothing in general, I think as like normal people, right? We don't play around with this, but you watch like a fashion show, something high end, right?
Hmm.
People are wearing things. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, this doesn't make sense like in the real world, but it
Yes.
stop them, right? So that's kind of how I felt about the t-shirt cardigan that you made.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe for me, this is like a little step in the extreme, right? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
but like at the end of the day, it's like, well, that's fashion. And that's
Yes.
cool. Like, you're going to walk around with that and you're going to turn some heads. You're going to get some people asking you, like, where did you get that? Or did you make that?
Yes.
Cool,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, you know? So
Yep.
I think, like, I think in the crochet world, like, it's important. We don't have to, like, stay in this box, right? I mean, as it is, right? Other designers are stealing crocheters' work all the time. So it must be pretty cool. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's like we don't have to stay in this box. Like, you're creating, you're designing, you're a designer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, you're a designer. And just because you aren't, you know, Versace or something doesn't mean that you can't experiment and make something that's like runway worthy versus like practical
Yeah.
and everyday use, you know? So it's fun.
And I do think that that jacket really, you know, and for anyone who's listening, this is a jacket that is in testing right now. I think it's going to release in July. It's a collaboration with the Hooked brand, HOOOKED, Hooked Yarn. They're going to release it on their website as well, but um, it feels like a milestone because it's like um, because it was so different and because like it looks different from what I've seen. And I was like, it made me feel like I really did design something I hadn't seen before. And it was like it's very empowering, you
Yes.
know? I mean, it's just like you said, when you had created something and to turn that into a pattern. And I would love for you to talk about that a little bit because so far I think that's the only pattern you've released.
Yes.
And I would love for you to talk about that experience, what that was like, and if you feel like that's something that you're gonna revisit in the future and create more designs, or if not, what's that reasoning and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, again, it maybe goes back to that, like being that little bit of like a personal moment
Mm-hmm.
where I was like, you know, I created something that was kind of like a mistake that ended up being
Mm-hmm.
really cool. And you're hesitant to share that with the world, right? Because again, you think like, I take so much pride in this, like this was so meaningful for me, this helped me get through the pandemic, and now I'm gonna like share it, you know. Also, I'll just be honest, I don't do math, don't do
Yeah.
math, and there's a whole lot of math that's involved in the pattern writing process. And I definitely got a greater appreciation for that in testing
Yeah.
patterns, because we talk about that a lot. Like, okay, if I take 3 stitches away from here, but then I've got to multiply that by 6 down here, right? It's like, that's not for me. Not for me. Um, so I felt like with my pattern, I was able to literally just like take what I had made, you know, that first prototype or whatever, and I was able to duplicate it, and I created a pattern that didn't need a whole lot of modifications, size
Mm-hmm.
to size,
Yeah.
you know, because it's supposed to fit oversized. So like people
Yeah.
that would only wear a small, it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. You can make a medium, you can make a large, you can make an XL. Like,
Yeah.
it's all going to be in how you kind of want it to fit. And
Mm-hmm.
so the process was, it was fun for me, but it was taxing. Like, it's taxing
Yeah.
from a brain power standpoint for myself.
Yeah.
But I do think there is something so special in seeing someone make something that came from your brain, right? Like, the just like
Mm-hmm.
and even beyond my brain, because I don't even think it came from my brain, like it just came from my hands, where I was like, I'm just gonna crochet this many rows until I decide to stop
Yeah.
because I'm tired, and then I'll go on to the sleeves, I guess, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, it was something that was incredibly personal, but it was also really rewarding to see the testers like making their interpretation of it, and just, yeah, just seeing them like kind of like out in the wild. So
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't know that I'll make any more patterns. I think the joy for me comes from the adaptation of like in testing the patterns, the liberties that you all give. Like, to me, that's my strength, is in like the
Mm-hmm.
color choices and the yarn choice. And I get a lot more, yeah, that's a lot more rewarding for me. I get a lot more joy out of that
Yeah.
than like the pattern creating process.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's probably where I'm at with that.
Well, and I loved seeing this was kind of in the beginning when it was like my Luna Trelawney Tonks phase. like that little section there.
Yes.
And you would mix and match. And it was like the coolest thing in the
Yes.
world to see these cardigans that you would create, mixing and matching pieces from each of those cardigans.
Yes.
And I told you, I was like, you need to write some of these up.
Yes.
If you want to, like, these are unique enough, you know?
Those 3 that you're talking about right now, for sure. I have made a lot of like really weird tonks that weren't really tonks, you know, but had the sleeves from the Luna and, you know, whatever. And yeah, I think that's, yeah, I think that there's something about that, and something that like, I don't know, call it selfish, but that like, I just don't want to share it with the world. I want to be like, yeah, I just want to be able to make this, and I want my friend to know that he's the only one that has that cardigan. And I really like the uniqueness of it, and like that kind of one of a kind. Typically everything that I've made in one way or another, even from the start with my scarves, was advertised and marketed as such. It's like, this is one of a kind. No one else is getting it. So
And I've noticed, and I would love you to talk about it a little bit, because we're going into market season for the summer. I never did summer markets, and I don't know, do you do summer markets? I think
the first one that I ever did when I was still living in New York, that was just the nature of it. It ended up being summer, and I make some small like trinket dishes and beer koozies and things of that nature. But that's definitely not like my kind of bread and butter. And so I did it just to get into the marketplace and see what it was like. But I don't have a product that's super marketable for the summer. Like
and that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because I think, and I could be totally wrong here, but I think that you're a lot like I was when I was doing markets, and you have some key pieces. You have some key items that you bring to these markets. And I would love for you to talk about what some of those key pieces are that have been, you know, profitable for you, that have been something that you enjoy making multiples of. Because I think that's another thing people struggle with, is when I'm selling products, you don't want to get burnt out making the same products over and over again.
Right.
So what has that looked like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, scarves is a big one. Like, I don't mind making, infinity scarves until the cows come home, right? Quick makes.
All night.
They're quick makes for me. They, again, you can mix and match the colors, so you feel like it's never getting old. So that's like a key thing for me. I also think like it's intriguing to folks, right? Because they just see like, oh, wow, like what is that colorful thing? A lot of times people come to the table, it's like a blanket or something, because it's like so large, and so that's a struggle too, right? Learning like, how do I actually like merchandise these things? I have a retail background, so my brain kind of thinks that way anyway. But yeah, definitely scarves. Another thing that was like this past one that I had that was a really big seller for me was like the little vest that you made with the hood.
I thought I saw those on your table.
Yeah, and that was something too, which is like, I mean, all of your cardigans I find to be pretty quick makes, but eliminate the sleeves. It's on, right? Like so I think vests are a perfect like product to have, where you can probably make several of them and get a really good reaction from people. And those were definitely a big hit. Even the very first like pocket vest that you had, I made several of those just for like people in my family, my friends, and like people just love that idea, and just having like that kind of mobility and everything, all the reasons that people like vests in general. But I think in a crocheted product, it can be very, very popular. So that was one that I loved doing, and I would probably continue to do it. It's so interesting because I know a lot of people in the community talk about this. Like, it's hard to price things, right? So now you're making all these things, and it's like, oh, what's the pricing structure going to look like? And, is it going to be profitable? And I always tell people that for the most part, this is not a business, like a true business for me, meaning I'm not trying to support myself with it, right? Like I have a full-time job that pays my bills. And that this is really just something that I enjoy, and that I would do it even if I wasn't selling them. I would still be making things. So I have to get rid of them because I'm just like making them, right? So yeah, I didn't put a huge emphasis on price for a long time. And then I have a good friend who is a coworker of mine, and he was just like, work in a place where people like are willing to like pay money for something that's not handmade, right?
Yeah.
Not one of us. That's not unique to them. People are willing to pay it. So he's like, you're kind of like, you know, projecting your own feelings, right? Of like, I don't know, will people want to pay for that? You know, and it's like, yeah, forget that. Just tell them it's $300. Either they'll want or they won't. Right? And so that's kind of where I've gotten with it now, where I'm like, yeah, like you can't get this anywhere else. So you want it or not. You don't want it, you don't want to pay for it, then I'll give it to my mother for free. That's fine.
Right. Yeah.
That's fine, because I love her and she looks great in it. But if you want it, like you can pay for it the same way that you would go to a store and pay for something, you know? So there's definitely a little bit of that I would encourage anyone out there who's doing it. Like, know your worth, understand that like they can make the decision. They can buy it or they cannot buy it. But that's on them.
And tell me how you felt, because I've been there, when you go ahead and you do it. You raise those prices, and that first person that you're like, this is $150, and they're like, I'll take it, here's cash. And you're like, what? This is amazing. And then you never second guess yourself again.
Exactly.
And it will happen. Anyone who's listening, it will happen.
It will.
If you're selling out of things, you up that price and you just tell them, and you surprise yourself.
Absolutely. No, awesome. It is a big confidence boost for sure.
Yeah. I remember the biggest thing that I was bringing to shows at any given time, I never did wearables, because at that time when I was doing shows, I had never made wearables. I had knit myself a sweater once and I hated it. So, you know, but I was making my big wraps, the big wraps with the tassels.
Yeah.
And I would bring 3 to 5 of those to one big show as like statement pieces. I'd have one up on a model, you know, the mannequin, with everything else on the table. And the other one was bags. I had these big wool tote bags that I was making. And I would bring, again, like maybe 2 or 3 of those to a show. And I remember for me, I think that I decided to charge $85 for the tote bags, which that could have been more, but at that time that felt like a lot, because I had started at like 65.
Yeah.
But that was at a smaller show, and I was like, this is a bigger show, cost me more to be here, I'm going to up it to 85. And I think the wraps were like anywhere from 1 to 120, which felt very high for me. And I just remember that feeling of someone coming up and saying, I have to have that. They didn't care how much it was at all. They just had to have it. And I remember another lady who paid cash for one of the wraps and then came back at the end of the show and bought another one for cash and was like, I had to have 2. I was going to regret it if I walked out of here and only bought 1.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one of my first sweaters that I made, I sold for $65. And like I said, my friend Greg told me, like, you will never do that again. He's like, you're not, you know, someone had asked me to make these crocheted necklaces, right? And they were small. It wasn't a big deal, but I charged them $1 a piece. He's like, we don't sell things for $1. He's like, we don't do that, you know? So
just let them have it then, right? Exactly. Just let them have it. Yeah.
Right. He's like,
these are freebies for my booth.
Right. So, yeah, so that took a while for me to like feel that confidence in doing that. And I think like, yeah, for everybody, like it's easy to stay stuck in like, oh, I'm still a beginner, right? I still do that when I request to test certain patterns. I'm kind of like thinking to myself like, oh, I wonder if this person will select me because, you know, I'm kind of a beginner. And I'm like really impressed when someone new starts following me or finds me and like they're like commenting or like messaging me saying like, oh my God, I love your stuff, it's so amazing, you know. And so you can have that little bit of like you know, imposter syndrome, right, that exists in kinds of places
always.
But I think like it's important to like reevaluate your skill set and be like, no, I actually like, I'm making a valuable product, like this looks good. I always say, like, I feel the best when I'm wearing something I made and a person says to me, like, did you make that? Like, it's like a question mark. Like, they're not sure.
Yeah.
Like, did you make that or did you buy it? And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's when I know it looks good, where they're not sure.
Yeah.
It looks like you could have made it, but it also looks so good that maybe you bought it, you know? So
Yeah. 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 It's a fantastic feeling. I mean, and I think that's for anyone. You said it right. Imposter syndrome's real, and it's going to stick with you probably your whole life.
yeah.
I mean, there's always going to be, and this is, I'm kind of going to equate it to, I was having a little chat with someone. It's actually someone who's going to be coming on another Pink Sheep and Friends live, and I was doing my pre-Zoom chat with them, and they have probably double the followers that I have. And they said, you never feel like it's enough. It doesn't matter how many you have. You're always going to be second guessing yourself. This person has more, or this person's doing more elaborate things. You know, you're always going to have that like sneaky little comparison bug, you know, that's going to sneak in. It doesn't matter how good you get, how experienced you are. But it is that reevaluation of, you know, I mean, it took me a long time to be willing to call myself a designer. It was like, how many patterns do I have to make to feel like I can confidently say, no, I'm a crochet designer?
Yeah.
And even now I'm saying that, I'm like, do I sound, you know, conceited saying that? Sure. Like, oh, I'm a crochet designer, you know, but you're not. Like, you have to be willing to own it and be confident. And that's difficult, I think, for anybody.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, to your point, like, we do live in a world with social media and like the ability to compare yourself to another person, not just not just with the products you're making, but the way you look in them and the way your body looks and this, that, right? There's so many opportunities to compare ourselves to others that can make it really difficult to just exist. So you know, I think like there has to be a good balance there. There has to be a good balance. Like, yeah, we don't need people that are like, you know, super haughty or like, oh yeah, I've arrived, I'm the best or whatever. But at the same time, I think that you owe it to yourself to like recognize your strengths and what you've accomplished and to feel really good about that, you know. And I think if you show up that way, you're inspiring others as well. Right? Now someone can look at you and say, wow, well, look at what this person has done. Like, maybe I could do, you know, and I think that exists at every level, whether you have 400 followers or 200 or like me, 1,000 or 40,000, right? You know, I think that having someone that you can look at in an aspirational way beyond followers, but just the impact that that person is having on others, I think is really important.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So you still test a lot, right? Or you test regularly?
Yeah, I test regularly. I'm not as crazy as some folks. I have learned how to take a break. I have learned how to say, like, I can't do this right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to limit myself a little bit in that. And perhaps even I used to take on like a lot of projects that I knew that I could complete. And now I'm more so saying like, well, maybe I want to take on like one bigger project, you know, and just like focus my attention on that. But yeah, I still am testing pretty regularly, but just being a little more selective in what I choose.
Yeah. So, and that reminds me, I don't know if I talked to you specifically about it, but it was that top that you made for Eclair Makery.
Yes.
OMG.
Yes.
That was amazing.
I will say you know, and I think I said this when I posted that was probably a pivotal moment for me. I felt pretty similar when I made the moon phase dress for Sunflower Knots.
Yeah.
That was
that one too.
First introduction into color work. And I just thought like, I can't do this. And she was, you know, Jen was great. She's like, no, I think you can, like, you know, and I had help, you know, even from our close group of crochet friends. I had help like with, you know, how to actually do the color work, and making that dress was like a huge confidence booster for me. And the reaction that it received from everyone was a huge confidence boost. And that's what inspired me to say for the Eclair Makery piece, I was like, yeah, now I'm going to crochet the freaking world on
Yeah.
a world map on my sweater, and that was really challenging. I mean, you want to talk about weaving in ends and carrying yarn over and all this, but that was so cool. That was so cool. And that was another pivotal moment for me where I was like, wow, like your skill set has definitely evolved. And just fun to see like that progression and evolution for myself.
Yeah. And those were beautifully designed patterns. Like those fit you beautifully. And I think I love getting to see when you finish projects and I'm like, wow, that designer really put the time in to like make sure that that was going to look good on everyone that wears it, and not all patterns are like that. And I think there are some designs where it is difficult, like especially things like crop tops. It's difficult.
I think it's difficult, but I mean, I'll use like the example of feeds as well from Asramani. Like she makes some incredible things that I always kind of joke her. I'm like, oh, that's like too sexy for me, right? Like she's sexy.
Her stuff is pretty sexy, yeah.
but she's very empowering, in how you make things. But I will say the designers that do it well, for all sizes and all body types, are the people that are listening, right? So like I think the ability to create a fully inclusive pattern is there. Yes, are some more difficult than others? Sure. But those people, that I have tested for and the end result has been really great, those are the people that are really listening and valuing the tester feedback, and I think that's important. If you want to put out a good product and you want people not only just to buy your pattern, but then to continue to advertise for you by it being a good product and them wearing it or posting it or whatever, then you have to be willing to remove the ego a little bit and just be like, yeah, I got this wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I got this wrong. And so let me learn from the people who are making it and are living in that body. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
and you've had both experiences. Have you had designers that have just kind of ignored that feedback and just said, whatever?
I feel like I've actually been very lucky. I've been, like I said, I've been pretty selective in looking through and like, trying to figure out like who doesn't maybe have the best reputation for that. So I've been pretty lucky in the people that I've tested for being really open to that.
That's good.
And so that would be my encouragement to folks. If you're trying to get into testing, like, don't just test for anybody, but be pretty perceptive. And, you can notice the way that a designer, when they put out a pattern, like how they're talking about their testers, the appreciation, tell by who they choose to, feature, on their post, and what do those people look like? Is there diversity, in that? I think that can all be pretty telling. And so, I've gotten pretty lucky. I've tested for.
That's good. So I do want to ask you this too, because I don't think we have too much time left. Let's see. Oh yeah, we got about 10 minutes. So for people who, because I think for you, I don't see, and I could be wrong here. You don't plan on making crochet like your main job, at least at this point?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes. And so it is more of this like hobby, empowering creative hobby that makes a little bit of money on the side when you're doing your shows, because you get more out of that. Just I can't think of the word, but like it means more than the money right now. Just going to shows and doing that, you get something more out of it. And I think a lot of pattern testers feel that way. But I would love for you to talk about, because pattern testers work for free. I mean, you buy your own yarn.
Right.
You are pretty much working for these designers to help them create these patterns. And I think there are probably some people out there who are like, why would you do that? So like, what is that for you as someone who regularly pattern tests, and what do you get out of that?
Yeah, I think it's probably, to your point, a pretty controversial topic. I just talked to a friend of mine recently who found out that I was, testing patterns. She, she's not in the crochet world. She had no idea what that meant. And I was telling her, and she's like, wait a minute though, like, so you're not paid at all. Like, you get a pattern, cool, but they don't even supply the yarn, So, I think for me, like I said, it goes back to the fact that I would do it anyway. I'd be making things anyway. And so just having the ability to be introduced to something new, and a new technique, a new group of people, right? Like, that's pretty common, again, in most tester groups, to follow one another and maintain those relationships with people even after the test is over. At least that's been my experience. So yeah, for me, it's just like, I've actually been using it as a tool to progress those skills. To me, it's almost like going to school or something, right? Why go to school? You have to pay to do that. Forget not getting paid. Like, you actually have to pay them. So that's kind of how I see it, is like, as schooling, like, okay, yeah, I have to make a little investment, and buy the yarn. But I get this pattern, and it's something that my brain wouldn't have necessarily created on its own. And then to your point, though, I begin to start mixing and matching. I mean, I've tested some things and I'm like, oh man, I love this stitch. I would have never found this stitch. And now I'm going to make something completely different. Maybe I'll revisit another pattern that I have, but use this stitch. And now you've created like something totally new and something totally different, So that's kind of how my brain works, is just using it as a tool. And I do, I said this recently on a post that I made. I see it personally as a way of honoring the individuals who have taken the time, and have used their resources and their creative mind to make these patterns. And I get a great deal of satisfaction by bringing to life something that someone wrote on paper, and I can bring it to life and share it with other people. So I think that's where the drive for it comes from me. And with that being said, I think that's a lot of testers, honestly. I think a lot of testers that are doing it, we're incredibly like compulsive people. We're just compelled to keep testing and keep making, and a lot of joy in it. And I think as long as the appreciation is there for the designers, and you feel valued, and you feel like you're making connections and you're networking, I think that it's mutually beneficial. It really is. So.
And I've heard the other two main things that I've heard is there are a lot of people who, if they weren't to be testing, they wouldn't know what to make next. It's like there's so many designs out there and so many patterns that you could purchase and make that it's overwhelming. Whereas if they just choose the next test, it's like, well, now I know what I'm making next. And I even have a deadline. And a lot of people say that, like, I would never finish this if I didn't have a deadline. So I'd go buy a pattern.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is so true. Many of us just have like what we would consider a passion project, or something we just wanted to make for ourselves, that you get 36 rows in and you're setting it aside and not revisiting it. I have something like that that's at home. The Marigold sweater by Namaste Crochet. I mean, that is a beautiful sweater. I want to finish it. I do, in my heart of hearts. But no one's pressuring me to do that.
Yeah. No one's like, hey, how's the progress going on your sweater? Because it's due in like 3 weeks.
Let me see a work in progress photo, So there's definitely, I think, some value to having that deadline, and feel like it's like being productive in that way. Yeah. That when sometimes you try to do something for yourself, that just doesn't happen.
Yep. And that's the other thing is I feel like sometimes it's an opportunity for people who never make anything for themselves to make something for themselves. Because I was stuck in that rut. When I did shows, I didn't make anything for myself. Like, I might keep a scarf or two, but there was nothing special that I would make for me. Yeah. And I didn't test a lot. I think I probably tested max 4 or 5 items because I've never been a pattern follower.
Yeah.
I even try to rewrite my own patterns. Like when I go back, and it's awful because I went back and I tried to alter, it was my Mariner crossbody bag. And I was like, maybe I could figure out a way to make this strap adjustable. And I went through all of this work to like try to alter the pattern. And I was like, no, I got it right the first time. This is awful. And I had to like frog it all the way back. And I was like, I don't even trust myself.
Right.
Yeah. trying to change my own pattern up. Right. But yeah, I think sometimes it keeps people focused and it allows them to make something for themselves. And I'm super thankful that you guys feel so compelled because I mean, I couldn't do it without you guys. I mean, I think that's if most designers would, and I think sometimes that's where I wish that all of designers understood that of, if you can't do what you're doing without these people, then you have to be willing to let them know that. Like, be thankful and be appreciative, and because
flexible. I think that's the other thing.
Yes.
Like, be flexible. Like, again, these people have we have our own lives. We have things that come up, like, right?
Yes.
So I think being a little bit flexible and being like, hey, like, you'll release your pattern. It'll be okay.
Yes.
Like,
and it's out there forever. It's out there forever. Like, It's okay if it's a month late. It's okay.
Right. So yeah, that flexibility is important.
Yes. Well, I think we are almost out of time, but I wanted to give you a chance to chat a little bit about what you have going on right now. What are you working on?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So what you working on?
Yeah. I am actually working on a pattern for Asramati Feed.
Woo!
And this is her tulip dress. So
I have not seen that.
It is a big project. It is a big project. I'm not a small girl, so it is a big project. And she did warn us. I was joking with her. I'm like, you warned us. You did say there's a lot of small stitches, in this, and it's going to take a little while. But it's a beautiful design, and so many of her things now. She's doing a lot with her Patreon as well. So having exclusive, patterns for folks who subscribe to that. Mm-hmm. She's coming up with a whole, kind of series of things in this like tulip kind of
cool
pattern. So really excited. I'm always excited to do a pattern because she's just filled with positivity and super helpful. And again, one of these people that are incredibly receptive. I'm excited about that. I'm feverishly working away at it and hope to finish by the deadline. So that is what I am currently working on. And then I think I'm going to take another little break. I tested for LCK Crochet not too long ago with her two-faced tank. And so
that was beautiful.
And then I did your most recent cardigan, and loved that. Can't wait for the release of it. And then I'm going to finish this up. And then I'm going to take a little break. I've been with my company that I currently work for my day job for 16 years. And as a result, I get a sabbatical. So for the moment,
that's awesome.
I don't have to go to work. So I'm going to take that time to just indulge myself in some other things that I just haven't had time to do. And then I'll revisit crochet as we get back into the fall, probably.
That's awesome. I hope that's fun for you. And I hope you'll share some of that, whatever it is that when you're doing other things. And
I will.
That'll be really fun to watch.
Yeah.
And if anyone's interested, I do have, if you don't know who Fides is, Fides, she is, I have an interview with her. I did a Pink Sheep and Friends with her.
Yeah.
So if you want to learn a little bit more about her, you can obviously follow her on Instagram. But if you want to watch her interview and kind of, where she started and what that journey looked like for her, you can watch that. I do have, and I was going to say this too, if you guys like these chats, I put them all on YouTube. So if you're the type who you need something to binge listen to and you want to get to know some other makers and creatives and designers and all of those wonderful people, I think there's 12 episodes now.
Awesome.
That are on YouTube that you guys can watch. And these do stay. I had someone commented asking if this will be on Instagram. That it stays on Instagram. Yes, you can watch it here. And I actually, as soon as I get off of here, I upload it to YouTube. So if YouTube's easier for you, there's a whole playlist just called Pink Sheep and Friends. that you can turn on and listen to. But Allie, I'm just so glad that I finally got to chat with you here. We'll definitely come back on. And I've been trying to let people know this too. Right now, all of these are kind of intro videos. We just kind of get to know each person, their background story, how they got started. But once I kind of run out of people, I mean, that's going to be difficult. But as I'm filling spots, I'll probably start bringing people back, and we'll have focused topics that we can chat about. You know, different things in the fiber world. So I'm definitely wanting to have you come back on so we can chat some more. And I think that's everything for today. So I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I hope everybody here has a fantastic weekend.
Yes, thank you.
And yes, we will talk very soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys.